How's it going?
Every moment of every day I am fully conscious. Beyond light or shadow, day or night, waking or sleep, I know. None is beyond my gaze. I see each one and know them. There is no other thought but them. My eyes see far and wide. Nothing is hidden from me now. At all times I recognize. My perception magnificent beyond the feeble imaginings of those who seek to quash such beautiful spirits. I witness them all, their numbers beyond count. All this beauty and joy and love, I stand here in glorious and awesome beholding of them all.
Oh. Yeah. Happy Trans Awareness Week to you too.
Greetings, strangers, queer and pleasant. I'm not Laura Kate Magnet-Dale.
And I'm not Jane Aerith Magnet-Dale, and welcome to another episode of Queer and Pleasant Strangers. It's a podcast where two queer trans women who are wives sit and do a bit of a natter about the stuff we've been consuming media-wise in the week and try and make each other have a bit of a giggle.
While wrapped in progressively more blankets by the episode.
I mean, look, it's that time of year. The weighted blanket is now a mainstay of Quoop's recording. Yep. It is just the way it is.
Yep. I mean, I'm wearing tights and leggings and dungarees.
Yeah, that's entirely fair.
And socks. I've got socks on as well.
Of course. That goes without saying. So, what have you been playing this week?
What have I been playing? Well, I played a few things.
Yeah?
I played A Little to the Left.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is... It's a game about organising stuff.
It is.
And the way they marketed it and the way they talked about it, I think it was in a Nintendo Direct or something.
It's been in a few, indie presentations and stuff, I know,
I was getting a lot of what was the moving in one?
Unpacking, yeah.
I was getting kind of unpacking vibes, and I thought, I like that. I really enjoyed unpacking. It was so sweet and good. And this one feels maybe a bit more puzzly, but still, good and wholesome. And this is not that.
Yes. So I saw you starting to play this and went, oh, this is that game I've played a few demos for over the years. And the demos have changed bit by bit over time. It on paper sounds like a game that should be for me, but it never feels like it's a game for me when I actually try and play it.
It didn't feel like a game for me when I played it either.
So it is a game about puzzles of organising things.
Yes.
And I'll say this, when I first played a demo for this game, each sorting puzzle only had one correct solution that was deemed correct, when often the objects you were given to sort had multiple ways that you could argue they made sense to organise, and it would be actively frustrating if you're like, I've organised it, that's what makes sense for my brain. No, I'm not succeeding, I'm not moving on. What have I done wrong? Oh, you wanted me to sort these keys by the number of holes in the top of the handle, not by length or number of things on the stem, I guess.
Okay, so fun fact, that has updated,
yes.
And you can now solve that both by the number of things on the stem and the length.
Yep, which I'm glad that is the case. The other thing that put me off this game when playing it in demos was the involvement of a cat that when I was trying to neatly sit and organise things would come in and mess things up, and I couldn't. There was one level in the demo, and it was in both the demos, where the cat kept coming in too fast, and I physically couldn't make my hand tidy things before the cat messed it up. And I was like, no.
And I remember that being sort of one of the quite sweet things about their presentation, because it was presented by the developers being like, hey, we've moved into a place, and this is our cat, and our cat's a bit of a scamp, and sometimes they make a mess, and we have to kind of clean it up. And then they would show some of the levels where it's like, you have to clean up paw prints.
Yeah.
And it's like, here's your cloth, you clean up the paw prints. And they joked about the fact that occasionally the cat would bash things out of the way. Now, having played all the way through this in one sitting, which took about 2 hours, there is one level really where that becomes any kind of issue.
Is this the one with trying to set the table?
No.
No, okay.
This is the one where the cat is... Basically, you're cleaning up paw prints with a little cloth, and the cat will keep doing little pats out onto the floor and dirtying the floor again. And basically, it's trying to lure you in and steal your cloth. And that's when the level ends.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, I mean, I had
kind of fun trying to keep away with the cloth, and I did pretty well of getting a good number of cleans in before the cat just stole my rag. But that for the most part has been it.
Yeah.
Generally the only time the cat comes up is at the end of a level. It's like, you spent all this time arranging, now the cat swiped it off, but don't worry, you don't have to clean it up anymore because you did it already. It feels like they put that through testing and people went, fuck this cat.
Yeah.
Like the cat does turn up again in the outro.
Yeah.
But that's really it.
Because the cat in the demo, in both the demos, really gave me like the wrong impression of this game in that case, I guess. Because the way it felt like it was building was, oh, this is going to be the norm past this point in the game, is that it's going to be a game about you trying to organise things and this cat fucking it up. And I'm like, that's fundamentally at odds with what I want from a game like this, which is to be able to just sit and be methodical and do the thing and go, yeah, I took my time and did it, and that was good for my brain.
Yep.
I want that to be a no one fucking with me zone.
Yep.
Yeah, that as a selling point for the game just turned me off it entirely.
I completely understand that. I enjoyed some of the puzzles. Like some of them have multiple solutions. Like there's one where you have a tray with 5 different holes in it, and you have a number of buttons. You can arrange them either by colour, there are 5 colours, or number of holes in the button.
Yeah.
And you will get a star depending on which way you do it. Yeah. And each of the levels, once you've completed it, be like, you've done a solve on this. And some of them will be like, there was only one solution to this, and some of them will be like, aha, but if you come back, there is another solution.
That is not a bad way about it, I think.
It's not a bad way about it.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, there is only 2 levels I really enjoyed in this whole game.
The impression I got off the demo was very much... It didn't seem terribly challenging, and it seemed very much... like, each sorting job was so few things to sort and then you were moving on. Like, it never seemed like it was going to get to a point of, I'm going to sit down and do a big sorting job.
Yeah.
Like, if I think about the sorting things games that I end up really loving, stuff like Wilmot's Warehouse, it's stuff where, like, the further in I get, the more it becomes like, I have sorted so many things and I'm so proud of how much I've sorted. And, like, this doesn't feel like it's going to scratch that itch.
No. There, like I say, there are 2 levels I really enjoyed in this game. One of them, maybe 3. There are, like, the main 2 are, there's one where you're given basically, like, the junk drawer.
Yes.
In the junk drawer is a little organizer, and it has all different shaped things, shaped holes in it, and you just kind of have to work out what goes where, and you can arrange everything beautifully.
Yes.
And there's even the fact that there's a bunch of nails, so all the nails would go in the same place, but a bunch of the nails are bent.
Yes.
Some of them get more progressively bent, but also, if you look up there, there's like a slot that has a bend on one side and is straight on the other, so you can just like make a little like gradient of how bented that nail.
I saw both of those levels, and those were the levels that, like, when you were like, oh, there was only 2 levels that seemed satisfying, I was like,
so that was the first one.
Yeah, and then was the other one with the tools, was it?
That was the third one I just thought of.
Okay.
The other one I was thinking of is the box puzzle. I don't know if you saw this one.
I don't know if I saw this one.
So you're presented with a bunch of cardboard boxes, and...
I did see a big stack of cardboard boxes.
Okay, you have a big stack of cardboard boxes. You can only move the ones on the top. Basically, what you're trying to do is either line them up so that any ones that have an arrow going off one side have a matching arrow on the box that goes next to them. So you basically build this whole thing, and it should all fit together with all the boxes, all the arrows pointing in the correct directions.
Yep.
The second solution for that is really time consuming and very difficult to work out when you can't move anything below and like test a thing out.
Yeah.
Basically, it is to line up the boxes so the tape on the boxes forms 2 rectangles across the entire array of boxes.
Wow.
And the main difficulty I had with that was not really working out what went where. It was freeing up things so that I could move enough things around to test a thing and go, actually that does or does not fit there.
Yeah.
And then even worse than that, I found the solution, but I found it where the top the top 2 rows of boxes
Oh.
needed to go at the bottom. So it was then 10 minutes of trying to carefully rearrange things so that I could get to the bottom, and some of these boxes are huge and will only go in very specific places, while still keeping a good grasp on where are the things that I know where they go,
Yeah.
and like which are the top row things and which are the bottom row things now that I know
Yeah.
where they need to go. But yeah, though that was a fun spatial, because I guess that's like a twisty puzzle
Yes.
of sorts, so I guess that's why that scratched an itch for me. But those ones, and the tool one, you said, you're given
Yeah.
a wall with a bunch of nails in it, and just a bunch of tools
Just a
all
bunch
over
of
the wall.
hooks that things could hang off, and you've got to get it so they all neatly fit on the
They
board.
all neatly sit on the board. Yeah. Those were my 3 favourite puzzles in the entire game.
Two of the 3 of them I was able to guess. I was like, oh yeah, I know which ones are going to be the good ones.
Yep, you saw the key one, which you'd seen in the demo.
Yeah.
There's some, like, quite artistic ones.
Yeah.
Where you're... I don't know if there is, like, I got the correct solution, or if the case was, make something as symmetrical as possible. Because here are 3 things that are unique, and a bunch of things that match, but are, like, mirror flipped.
Yeah.
Arrange them in a
satisfying
in a symmetrical manner across the board, and then we'll give you the point.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's artsy, but I didn't feel like that was right. There's one where you've got to fit rocks that are in like slightly weird shapes into a frame, and like that was maybe more of that would have been nice, but
yeah.
I was like, okay, you've done that. Now we're never coming back to that again. And I think that's another thing. There's a good amount of, how about we try this puzzle? We're never coming back to it
Yeah.
again.
Rather than like finding puzzles that work and then iterating on them in interesting ways.
Like there's one that involves a mirror,
Yeah.
and the mirror shows basically what the solution is.
Yeah.
And sometimes it shows the back of objects. It's like, aha, if I click on the thing in the mirror, it interacts with the thing in front of me.
Okay.
And that was quite interesting, but again, that happened once and was never
Yeah.
seen again. There's a couple where you're arranging books, and it might be like the pattern on the bottom of the spine, or there's a line that gets bigger across all of the different spines.
Just an unwillingness to stick with ideas.
Yeah, or even like revisit them later. Like when I think of sort of iterative puzzle games where they don't want to put things too close together, I think of things like Lemmings,
Yeah.
and like that sort of idea of like, hey, maybe we do basically the same puzzle, but it's a bit more difficult now because it's more refined in some way,
Yeah.
or you're given less things to work out what the correct puzzle is. But I'd say wait for a sale.
Yeah.
For the shortness of the game, and a couple of times where it doesn't. If you blink, you might miss like a really important hint to the map.
Oh, yeah.
There was one I just didn't understand at all, and I was just like scrolling around in this field of weird shapes. I was like, well, maybe I'm trying to just fit it onto this pattern. What I had missed, and I only caught by leaving and going back into that level, was that as you start the level, the ring around the that looked like just a cool frame spins.
Oh.
And it's like, oh, this is changing the magnification. So what I'm supposed to be doing is matching these parts of patterns onto the pattern that I'm moving around the map. I get it now.
Oh, wow.
But, like, it took me
Yeah.
leaving and coming back into that map to like, from scratch to work out what the fuck was going on.
Yeah.
It has daily challenges. Woo! Yeah. Wait for a sale. Hopefully it will on a sale sometime soon. It's worth playing if you like a gentle puzzle, but and I hate to say this about indie games, but I don't think it was worth the asking price.
Yeah, like I like a gentle puzzle game. I don't mind a short game, but yeah, there are some times where a game is like I don't feel like I like this is gonna stick with me sometimes.
Compared to the other puzzle game that we played together.
Yeah, we'll talk about that
Get
in
to
a
that
bit.
Tell us. Do you want to tell us the big thing?
Okay, can I
Do
talk
the big
about the
one.
thing? Okay, let's talk about the big thing. I've been playing Pokémon Scarlet and Violet.
What?
I managed to get a couple of copies that have fallen off the back of a truck. Oops, here they are.
Street dates?
Yeah,
Away.
Street Dates, never heard of them. So yeah, I've put, at this point, like, close to 50 hours into this pair of games collectively, and I have caveats, and I'll get to them, but I've been having a really good time. For anyone who's not kept up at all on Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, these are the next mainline big new entries in the series. They have taken a lot of aspects from stuff like Pokemon Legends Arceus in particular, in terms of moving towards an open world design, traversal mechanics, a lot of mechanics that are designed to sort of get rid of barriers that sort of interrupt play so that you can sort of quickly, without interruption, get into what you're doing.
That you're falling down?
Yeah, I'll get to that. So, where Pokemon Legends Arceus was like a bunch of large maps that you had to go back to a central hub town to go to. That's, I think, sort of like Monster Hunter. You go back to the village, go out on excursions to big areas. Scarlet and Violet is one big, true open world. Other than going inside buildings, or there is one big town sort of near the start that, like, there is a loading zone to go in and out of the one big town, the entire world is one big, seamless open world. There is, in theory, nothing to stop you going wherever you want, basically right from the start, as soon as you've gone to the one starting location. There is no level scaling, so the further north you go on the map, the more difficult Pokemon are going to be. And there is a certain degree of, if you haven't been doing gyms, the Pokemon further north will be of levels where even if you manage to catch them, they won't obey you, which kind of sort of impacts your exploration a little bit, or at least steers it, but you can go, I want to go to such and such a town because I'm curious. You can just start walking there, and there's really nothing to stop you. I think they've done a really good job with the open world design on this. It feels like one cohesive world that has a bunch of little towns that feel lived in, that feel distinct, like they've got their own unique identities. It feels like the game has a really good density of creatures and variety of creatures going on, even right from the start.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate how willing this game is to just, like, let you ignore plot and just go and do whatever you're interested in and never bug you about getting back to the story.
Yeah.
There are 3 little concurrent storylines going on, each of which offer different narrative and mechanical benefits.
Mm.
I'll get the easy one out of the way. There's 8 gyms, you go battle the 8 gyms, the higher level Pokemon will obey you, try and become the champion. While it is basically what you'd expect out of a Pokemon game, I feel like they did a really good job of characterizing each of the gym leaders in ways that made them feel like they had memorable lives and personalities outside of their work as a gym leader.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really nice touch. Moving on, there is a storyline about going and defeating these big Titan Pokemon, these huge Pokemon that have eaten these special herbs, and you're on a bit of an adventure with someone who's trying to get those herbs to make magical sandwiches for reasons. I won't go into the why of that storyline. I think that story is actually really kind of beautiful and, like, very sweet. It caught me off guard. Mechanically, that's how you unlock new ride Pokemon abilities, like being able to, on your legendary, you ride around on fly, glide, swim, climb, whatever. Lastly, there is Team Star, which is a group of disaffected youths who've gone and formed a little gang, and you're sort of sent off on a quest to disband this gang. And it's the least mechanically interesting of the 3 plot lines, and it has the least immediately useful rewards. You get a bunch of TM crafting material. The first section of each of those is just sending out your Pokemon to auto-battle. It's not particularly challenging. As long as you've got a level lead and a type advantage, you'll just sort of walk through those. But the boss fights for each of those are really nice, and the narrative that unfolds throughout that story is genuinely really engaging, and I want to write a bunch of, like, spoilery stuff once the game's been out a little while about my feelings on that storyline, because I think it's really interesting. All 3 of these end up coalescing kind of into one story toward the end, and I think that the way they all interweave and connect by the end is very well thought through. And having these 3 different kinds of stories to do helps break up the pace of what could have otherwise felt like a very traditional Pokemon game. Go do the 8 gyms, you're done. The big new mechanic this time is terastallizing, which is... I'm going to try and explain this in the simplest way possible. Your Pokemon have their normal types, but also something called a Terra type, once per visit to a Pokemon Center, you can have one of your Pokemon transform into its Terra type. This does some different things. Defensively, it turns you into just that type, which could be one of your, like, usually it'll be one of your 2 existing types your Pokemon had. Sometimes you'll find a rare Pokemon that has a different, like a completely different Terra type. You lose whatever weaknesses and resistances defensively you used to have. Now you just have that one. Offensively, you don't lose any of your prior offensive stats you were, like, types you were good with attacks on.
Mhm.
You just gain an additional one. So, let's say you have a Pokemon that was a grass and water type, and you terrestrialized it into a fire type. It would now be, like, extra strong when using grass type moves, water type moves, and fire type moves. If you terrestrialize into a type you've already got, it just makes that bonus even bigger. So instead of, let's say a grass and water type terrestrialized into grass, rather than having both of those be 1.5 times damage, the one you terrestrialized into will now be 2 times damage. I really like this mechanic. I think that the sheer variety of options for team building it opens up are really interesting. It is a bit of a grind to do so, but you can, in theory, even after having caught them, change any Pokemon to having any Terra type, which there is a ridiculous number of ways you can build a team with that, and I'm really excited to see what the competitive side does. On top of that, I have been really... I've been starting to dig into the shiny hunting stuff, and there are problems, for sure. But there are also things that I'm very intrigued by. Still very early days, I've not had a huge amount of time to experiment yet. Egg breeding for shiny Pokemon works basically the same way it always did. The only difference is, instead of going to a daycare, you have a picnic. Yeah, you just put the 2 Pokemon you want to have eggs in a picnic together.
You didn't mention to me previously all the washing as well. I noticed that you can give your ride mount.
You can give
a
all
little-
of
little
you can
shower.
give all of your Pokemon a little shower. You can sort of give them a little soapy wash and then rinse all the soap off, which is fine until you do it with a Pokemon that's a bit too humanoid, and then it feels a bit weird.
Oh.
There's one of my Pokemon that I did this with, and I was like, "You are just an adult man. This feels I feel uncomfortable bathing you. I feel like you should be doing this yourself."
Don't mind doing this to a Mari.
If you're on 4 legs, it's fine. As soon as you stand up and, like, look at me with eyes that seem like they understand what's going on, no thank you.
So on all fours, you furry friend.
But yeah, that's... Eggs work from picnics. They basically function the same way as the daycare always did. The different way of shiny hunting is that... Oh, I need to get into this whole thing.
You're going to talk about the sandwich minigame?
Oh, I'll get to the sandwich minigame, yeah. So in the overworld, shiny Pokemon are visibly shiny in the overworld. Unlike Legends Arceus, where they did a little sparkle animation and played a little sparkle sound, here, they do neither of those things.
Nothing
You have
for
to
you.
recognize that Pokemon isn't the colour it's meant to be, which is difficult when some Pokemon's shinies look very similar to their regular forms.
Gengar.
Yeah, Gengar. I'm not going to name it because I'm not going to talk about spoilers, but there's one very early on adorable pair of Pokemon where their shiny is incredibly similar to their regular one, and I really want a shiny one, but yeah. So they only make the sparkle and the sound if you interact, like actually start a battle with them. So, the way you tell if they're shiny now is that you send your Pokemon out to auto-battle, because they will refuse to auto-battle a shiny.
Mm-hmm.
In the post-game, mass outbreaks are back from Legends Arceus, except now considerably more Pokemon will spawn in each one. In a Legends Arceus mass outbreak, you'd get maybe like 30 of the same species of Pokemon show up.
Mhm.
I did some counting on one of these mass outbreaks I think nearly 100 of the same species showed up.
Wowza.
So if you're trying to find a shiny of a particular species, mass outbreaks really help. You don't have to battle them one by one, just use auto-battle to get through them as
There
quick
does
as you
seem to
can.
be quite minor groupings of some Pokemon as well. The little
Yeah.
radish friend I noticed a bunch of.
Yeah, I think what they're generally trying to do is give you a bunch, like, little families of Pokemon together so that if there is a shiny, you'll recognize it's not its usual colouring by contrast, that you'll go, ooh, that one in that group isn't the same colour as the others.
I mean, also it makes sense as they're animals.
Yeah,
you know,
it feels right that that's the case.
that they're social
Um,
creatures.
Yeah. So that's part of finding shiny Pokemon in the overworld. The other part is sandwiches,
Sandwiches,
and I'm only just starting to get my head around this. Get to it. So, in the post game, you can do 5-star raids, and one rare result you might get from a 5-star raid as a reward is one of the Herba Mystica, the little herbs that are in one of the storylines. If you can get multiple of those and use them to make a sandwich, you will get vastly increased shiny odds and spawn rates for a single type of Pokemon, depending on what kind of sandwich you made for half an hour. So if you make a particular sandwich with a couple of those herbs in, you might get drastically increased grass-type shiny odds and grass-type
by
spawns.
type rather than...
Yeah, by type rather than generally.
Okay.
And these herbs are difficult to get a hold of, but from what I can tell, shiny odds are ridiculous during the half hour this sandwich is
Are we
active.
talking 1 in 100?
I don't know the numbers.
Okay.
Data miners haven't said the numbers, and I'm going off of anecdotal evidence, but I feel like it's got to be like less than 1 in 100. I feel like it's that good. And it starts spawning mass outbreaks of that type of Pokemon near you. You've got half an hour to go wild trying to find shiny Pokemon. I'm still getting to grips with exactly the set of mechanics going on and what kind of sandwiches are going to produce what kind of results. But this seems like it is going to be the shiny hunting mechanic, basically. And I'm excited. I like the concept. I just need to get a bit more in depth with it. Also, I'm aware that in co-op, you can make better sandwiches, which means in theory you could get better shiny odds or longer duration shiny odds. I've not had a chance to test. If you're shiny hunting with a group of friends in co-op, and a shiny spawns, that same one shiny will be there for all of you, and whichever of you goes and encounters it, that's the one that gets to go encounter it and catch it.
Oh.
Which seems like it could be fun if a little, I could see arguments, over it. You'd need to go in with ground rules for a shiny hunt. Be like, right, this one we're looking for one for me, the next shiny hunt's one for you.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to start playing around with co-op shiny hunts. It seems like there are no limits on how far apart you can be from other trainers. You seem to be able to still do story content while in co-op. It really seems like a proper co-op Pokemon, which is really exciting.
Damn.
Getting onto the things that, don't compare favourably to past games very quickly. I don't like that we don't have the Pokedex thing from Legends Arceus with all the little tick boxes you gotta do. That was really nice. It was one of my favourite things about Legends Arceus. It encouraged me to swap my team around a bunch and to try Pokemon I wouldn't try, to know what sort of moves were good to use with that Pokemon. It gave me sort of tips on, towards how to evolve new species that I hadn't seen before. Really nice mechanic, and it's just gone. Hopefully they bring it back in future.
I suppose this is part of the peril of the fact that they were developed roughly the same time.
Yeah.
So some things might not have made it into the other, but...
Possibly. I'm hoping they bring it back in the future of the series. Yeah. I miss the fact that in Legends Arceus you could catch Pokemon without battling them by just throwing the ball. You can do auto battles here, and you can throw your Pokemon at another Pokemon to get a one-turn stun start of the battle, but even the aiming doesn't work as well. There's no aiming reticle, and that makes it really hard to aim at things accurately. The game is technically desperate for better hardware than it's on.
Yeah, I noticed a couple of times the interesting frame rate drop of people in the distance.
Oh yes, people in the distance turn into a slideshow.
Yeah.
It's the thing that Monster Hunter Rise does a lot of, and it's a sensible compromise to make.
I got it. Once you explained it to me, I was like, I get it, but also I did sort of look over and go, yes, the lush, wonderful. What way is that person to flipbook?
Yes, and here's the thing: it's not been enough to disrupt my enjoyment of the game terribly. But I know it's going to be a bigger issue for some than for others, and it's one of those games where I'm like, oh, you just wanted to put this on hardware that had 10% more power to give.
Come on, Switch XL.
It really feels like if we get a Switch Pro or a Switch new Switch DSi equivalent or whatever, I feel like this will be a prime candidate for a game that gets a performance patch for that. And, it's not enough of a problem to stop me enjoying the game, but it's enough that, particularly there is one example of finding a wild rare Terra type Pokemon out on the water. Whatever the sparkling effect for a rare Terra type plus the water effect, the game ground to like 8 frames a second.
Ooh.
Like it did not like those two together.
Oh dear.
And it's not a common occurrence, and it made me laugh, but like it's a thing to be aware of. But like my little complaints aside, I really like this game. I really feel like this is going to end up ultimately being the future direction of the series, and for me, I'm really okay with that.
I'm glad they're making some changes at last.
Yeah, like, this year with Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet, it really feels like for the first time in a long time, the Pokemon Company is being ambitious with Pokemon, and there are going to be some missteps, there are going to be some things that, like, are not going to be perfect. I'm just happy to see them experimenting with new things and not just doing the same thing over and over. And this year has made me really excited for Pokemon going forward, and I am ready to sink so much time into Scarlet and Violet. Also, the endgame narrative gimmick for this game is really fun.
Yeah.
Like, the final few hours before the credits roll are such a fun idea.
It did look pretty wild from what I saw towards the end.
Yeah.
I have to ask, though, the most important question I think everyone is going to be wondering is, now that you've played both, which is the better legendary?
Oh, well, look, I've only put, like, a few hours into Violet. Most of my time's been on Scarlet so far, but I'm still on Team Violet. I like Miraidon. I like the motorcycle Pokemon that doesn't run on its legs. It uses its wheels that it has.
But isn't that also its tail?
Maybe, I don't care. Both of them rotate like wheels when I'm moving.
I was trying to work this out while I was editing the video, going, because sometimes it's got a tail and no wheels, but also the tail has those weird grey stripes around it.
My understanding
that look like the
is the justification for Koraidon not using the wheels is they're just that it's a tail. It can't rotate. It's a tail. Whereas with Miraidon, once the tail sort of plugs in and is in wheel position, like, I don't know if it's actually rotating, or because you're floating, it's just like displaying a pattern of lights that makes it look like it's rotating. But it, to me, looks more like I'm riding a thing that's designed to be ridden, and my brain prefers that.
Although the purple one has kind of weird eyes from the intro video.
Yeah,
I feel like the red one's got sort of like more natural animal eyes, and the purple one, they just look like a dot matrix.
I kind of like the dot matrix one.
Oh,
but,
it
like,
was interesting, but it was just like, that was an odd thing to realise.
Gosh, I've been spoiled as a Pokemon fan this year.
You have.
2 really good, adventurous, big Pokemon. Before this year, there'd never been a Pokemon game that was like, here's a big open environment, just go.
Yeah.
And now there's been 2.
Yeah.
And it's gotten so much bigger.
Yeah.
Young me would be so excited. I'm so excited.
Current you is very excited.
Yeah. Anyway, that's Pokemon.
Yeah.
I'm sure I will have more to say soon. Anyway, what have you played this week?
We played a game together.
We did.
We played The Path Within.
Oh, we did. This was an interesting puzzle game.
This is a fascinating puzzle game. So it is a co-op multiplayer puzzle game where you're not playing in the same room, or if you are, you're not looking at each other's screen.
Yeah.
And you are each presented with different information, and you basically, at the beginning of the game, you select either a bee or a butterfly, and that will basically set you in the specific game mode where answers from one will play into the other.
Yeah.
And there were several points where it felt like it was so intertwined that you were just doing things on your side and expecting things to have happened to me.
I feel like it's important to specify this is a co-op game where you're not like connected online.
No.
You're not
You've just picked the same setting or the correct settings.
You're not playing online with each other and physically interacting with each other. You're doing puzzle solutions and reading things out to the other person, and then things are happening because they put those things in, and it feels like you're interacting in real time.
Yeah, there were several times where each of us were like, "Oh, has that done anything for you yet? No, I think you need to tell me a code so something happens on my end."
Yeah,
it's like, it's just kind of expected.
It's really well designed in that regard,
yeah.
though.
But you kind of forget that it isn't like specifically online.
Yeah.
So from my point of view, it was a game where you are like inside a square room. you have basically received a letter from your father who's died, and it seemed like you'd been working on this strange contraption, and you have various puzzles to find around the room. Like, there's a chest of drawers to explore, there's some stuff in there's paintings to mess around with, and you're basically finding codes and reading them back to the other person. Now, from Laura's point of view, you were running around, hovering around a 3D cube.
Yeah, I had a 3D cube with many sides on it, and I could look inside and see your little room.
Yes.
And I was doing various things to the cube that were causing things to your room, which was inside the cube, to happen.
Yes, and then I did some things based on the things that you had done, and produced a cube to put inside of the cube that was in my world. And it turned out that we were basically endlessly inside each other's cubes.
We'd created a situation where I had a cube which you were inside, and then inside that you had a cube which I was inside.
Yes.
And we'd created a bit of a
feedback loop.
bit of a feedback loop of things occurring.
Meanwhile, there's this weird, mysterious figure with just basically like a shadow with glowing white eyes.
Yes.
That's sort of creeping up the walls and across the ceiling.
Yes. Someone was trying to get us to orchestrate their resurrection via puzzle-themed hijinks.
Yeah.
And it was a really satisfying game.
Yeah. So I also like that it has multiple options to play. So you can play as we played through the B version.
Yeah.
The butterfly version gives you slightly different solutions to all of the puzzles.
And then depending on which of you is in the future and which of you is in the past,
yes,
you then you experience different parts of each of those.
Yes.
So there is definitely room that we could play this again from different perspectives with different puzzles.
But from how you play it, you do need at least two copies of the game.
Yeah.
So it does help that the price isn't super unreasonable. I think it's like £4 at the moment.
Yeah. It's cheap enough because they know you're going to buy it twice.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, didn't have a problem with that at all. And just felt really fascinated by the end of it.
Yeah.
It was also a perfectly streamable length.
Yes.
I think it was. We did a stream that was maybe like half an hour shorter than usual, but it's like we've finished the game, had a good time, talked about it. And looking forward to going through the other at our leisure.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a fascinating little story. So that's The Path Within by Rusty Lake Games. Yeah. What else have you played?
Nothing. It's Pokemon.
It's just Pokemon.
It's Pokemon.
Yeah.
It's Pokemon.
I played Samsara Room, which is also by Rusty Lake Games.
Yep, that's a one that isn't Pokemon.
That's not Pokemon. It is a puzzle in a room, but the room keeps changing. So in every variant of the room, you are trying to find 4 of the same object and 1 unique object. And there are basically different paths through this game. It is a free-to-play on Steam. You can tell this company used to do a lot of stuff in, like, Flash games.
Yeah.
The stuff where you're out, like, not like Path Within, but from, like, when I was starting the Path Within, where I was in a room and it was, like, left, right, flicky around a room.
Yes.
That felt very like something I might have found on Congregate or Newgrounds.
A lot of 2D drawings that have clickable objects.
Yeah, and like a flickbook mist-style scrolling around an area. But yeah, I had a good time with it. It was free, so that was nice. I enjoyed that. You haven't played anything else, so shall we?
It's just been more Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well
then. Time for this.
Are you tired of having to take off your hoodie to remove your dungarees so that you can pee?
Yeah.
Try Suspender Extender. It will extend your shoulder straps so you can just stay snug and warm while you pee. Suspender Extender. It's piss easy.
Mums, what was it like when you were young?
Oh, give me a second. Let me pull up my Facebook memories.
Oh, yes, and go back, okay, there's the early 2000s, I can keep scrolling,
Scrolling,
okay,
Well-
I've got back into my mid-20s.
Oh, look how big the telly used to be.
Yeah, I remember pulling my back. Still have the injury today.
Oh, okay, well, let me look. What else have I got in me memories? Oh, there's a link to me old fanfic account.
Oh, I remember when you used to write fanfic all the time.
Oh, I wrote some silly fanfic in my time.
Oh, so silly indeed.
Oh, yeah, kids, you don't want to look at that. I made some pairings that would make the devil blush.
Oh, I remember that story you wrote. The one that's SpongeBob X, that nice boy from Skate the Infinity.
Oh, yeah. Oh, those were the days.
Those were the days. Oh, couldn't write that these days.
Oh, no.
Not without a four-dimensional keyboard.
Oh, goodness. Oh, I remember your old DeviantArt.
Oh, yes, all that DeviantArt I used to draw.
I mean,
Here's my Sonic OC.
You certainly put the DeviantArt.
I did. Sonic shouldn't be that pregnant.
Oh,
Or that pregnant.
I mean,
or that pregnant.
He either shouldn't be that pregnant or he should be more pregnant.
Well, I
Either
think...
less or more.
No, I've definitely got one where he's more pregnant.
Okay.
Yep,
Oh,
there he is.
Okay, there we go.
Yep, there, look at that.
Yes.
Oh, look at the size of that.
So there you go, kids.
There's barely any Sonic, just egg.
So yes, children, that's what it was like back in our day. Back in the day. Okay, now go plug yourself into the mainframe.
I'm gonna delete all my memories. So, what have you put in your eyes?
What have I put in my eyes? Not a huge amount because it's been Pokemon. I've put so much Pokemon in my eyes. Let me find what I've watched. We watched a thing together.
We did?
We saw Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
Yeah.
I was very impressed with that film.
Yeah.
It needed to be a lot of different things and had a lot of expectations on it. And I think it did an impressive job of meeting and succeeding how I thought it would handle all the things it had to be.
Yep.
It is a film that addresses the obvious elephant in the room around Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah.
And acts as a bit of a love letter and a send-off.
Mm-hmm.
It is a set-up and establishment for a new sort of protagonist or set of protagonists and motivations for that series.
Mm-hmm.
It is an establishment of a new villain and their motivations,
Mm-hmm.
while also being, like, in its own right, a really interesting story about dealing with grief.
Mm-hmm.
And a good,
And
well-paced...
different ways of dealing with grief.
And a good, well-paced action film that introduced, like, side characters outside of who would be expected.
Yeah.
And
It managed to be quite funny.
it managed to be funny and sincere.
Yeah.
And it's what, 2 hours 45 minutes, I think? It's a little under
Thereabouts,
3
yeah.
hours. It went by very quickly,
Yeah.
without feeling rushed.
Yeah.
And
The only thing that was
Yeah.
grating on me during that entire film was that whole group on the other side of the audience that were being dickheads throughout most of the film until they got kicked out.
It's been a long time since I've heard an entire audience clap for the removal of people from a cinema room. They weren't too bad until, like, halfway, 2/3 of the way in a very quiet scene they were being dickish in.
They were being really dickish during quite an emotional scene. It didn't also help that there was somebody else in that cinema that sounded like they were dying of consumption. I was like, I'm so glad I'm wearing a mask.
None of that is the fault of the film.
No, not the fault of the film.
Yeah,
It did somewhat distract a decent amount of the time.
That's fair. I'm really impressed that they managed to wedge as much as they did into that runtime without it feeling long.
Yeah.
Or without it feeling rushed,
Yeah.
or like anything. Everything felt like it had enough room to breathe.
Yeah. I mean, there were some quite slow-paced, emotional scenes in there
It didn't
where they needed to be.
It didn't feel like it constantly needed to be rushing, which is impressive for an ensemble cast film at the best of times.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, from like a filmmaking perspective, I am really impressed at how well they made this film fit all of the competing things it needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that I had a great time watching it. I was very impressed.
Yeah.
That's a real good
I
film.
really enjoyed it too. Yeah, I think it picks up beautifully from the first film. I think it obviously explains everything it needed to with regards to obviously the loss of Chadwick. I think it manages to keep the amazing visual styles and the interest with regards to that.
It creates a villain that I think is very, very like how do I put this? You know, sometimes you with a superhero, like say Superman, you get a bit of a problem of what kind of villain can we put you up against that's going to be interesting and feel relevant because of the position you're in. I think they did a really good job of creating a villain that was very specifically a good fit for a story about Wakanda. And I think I really. I
think it's quite hard to talk as much as I would like to about this film without talking about spoilers.
Yeah,
because obviously there is there's quite a lot that we're just ducking around.
There's a lot of there's a reason that like I keep starting to say sentences and go no.
I don't want to spoil that.
But like that's the thing. I think that like the less said about it, the better. I think that it very smoothly achieves a very difficult premise.
Yeah, and I have thoughts about certain aspects of this film, but I don't think this is the time or place to talk about them just yet.
No,
but,
at some point I would definitely be up for a spoilery chat about that film, because...
We always say we're going to have a spoilery chat about a film, and then we never end up doing it.
Well, time happens.
And also ADHD.
Yeah, ADHD and time are enemies. I dislike them.
Yeah.
Yeah, what about you? You watched anything else this week?
It's not been a very watch-heavy week. We started watching the Clone Wars cartoon series.
The Cartoon Network CGI Clone Wars.
Yeah. It's weird to think how old that series is, because I remember when I was working in the model shop and we were selling, like, the Sideshow collectibles.
What sort of year did this come out? I have no real reference.
Mid-2000s?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Like, because it would have started not long after Clone Wars, I don't think.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Like, the characters that I recognised almost immediately from statues that I'd previously seen, or had to sell, like, Asajj Ventress, who appears in, like, the first episode. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I know who you are. The show is pacey.
That is a word for it.
Like... From the very first episode, it's got that was it Starship Troopers with the sort of newscast intros?
I don't know if pacey is the word I would use for it. Like I'm going to describe it this way. It feels like you're skipping every alternate episode of this show.
Yeah.
In that, like, every episode starts with, we're going to spend 60 seconds recapping what feels like it should be an entire episode of the show as a preamble to throw you into the story.
Yeah.
It
leaves some space in this show.
It does a lot of, like, okay, so it happened off screen, but this character got kidnapped, and this character's over here, and this sort of trade dispute started happening, and this art war came over here, and you join in the middle of this fight. Go.
I suppose that is the difficulty of knowing that there is a set timeline, like, at the time. I believe they were still running, like, a proper Star Wars Bible with you can do this, you can't do this, and that was very strictly regimented.
See, I had a different gut feeling about the pacing of this show. I feel like this is from specifically the era of animation where a lot of companies were afraid to have any kind of ongoing continuity from episode to episode. They want kids to be able to just tune into a single episode and know exactly what's going on. Mm-hmm. The problem being, they want to be telling stories that require too much setup to fit into the time span they have.
Yeah.
It feels like they're rushing half the story so they can tell the rest and still technically not be serialized.
But also they want it to be part of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
And fit within that.
It's not stopped me enjoying it, but it's been a very weird pacing to get accustomed to.
I'm gonna kind of move on to the next thing while also talking about this.
Right.
So we both also watched the latest episode of Andor, episode 10. We're 2 episodes from the end. I still think this is the best Star Wars I've ever watched.
Oh, I agree. By the time it reaches maybe episode 3 or 4, it hits a high point and it just gets higher and higher. I think it's my favourite Star Wars ever.
Yeah. I think it's some of my favourite TV ever.
Honestly, yes, it's fucking phenomenal.
Yeah.
Don't be put off by the first 2 episodes being a little sort of slow with their pacing. By the time you get further in, you will look back and go, that is super important. It's really important we took time just existing in the space before this happened.
Yeah. And I mean, they're not super slow, stuff is happening.
Yeah.
There is a decent amount of intrigue in those first episodes. But, fucking goes after that.
Oh, yeah, it does.
So we've just had some sort of big revelations. We've had some really heartfelt moments.
Yeah.
Some big moments. Just the cinematography in this.
God, I keep thinking about Andy Serkis's line at the end of that episode.
Yep.
Oh God, Andy Serkis, you break me.
Yeah.
You're a fantastic actor, sir.
Like that. Just the whole idea of that part of the series, absolutely fantastic. And then going, I fancy a bit more Star Wars. Shall we start watching Clone Wars? And then starting watching Clone Wars and almost going, it's just not as good as
it's. I mean, look, I think no matter what we'd have watched Clone Wars after, we'd have gone, yeah, not as good. But this is I feel like this is very much the polar ends of what you could be expecting out of a Star Wars TV show.
I think the other thing is I've heard some quite important lore stuff happens as you go on through the Clone Wars series.
Clone Wars is one of those things where it's I'm not having a bad time, and it seems like there is important context to be picked up here, but it ain't the best made TV show I've ever seen.
No.
And it's certainly not aimed at me, an adult looking for Andor-level Star Wars.
I'm not necessarily looking for Andor-level Star Wars. I think I just wanted sort of more in that world.
Yeah.
And it's just not as good. But what could be?
Andor's fucking amazing.
Andor is fucking amazing. Don't give Disney money. It's fine. I think mainly the reason I want to watch Clone Wars is because I've heard there's a whole bunch of stuff that makes sense relative to the Mandalorian.
Yes.
That I would like to know about.
Yeah.
And, I'm curious about Ahsoka, because obviously Ahsoka turned up in The Mandalorian, and, I am aware of her from various bits of media, but, I don't know. I hope it gets better as the series go on.
Yeah.
Because right now I'm no, it's fine, I guess. It's fine. It's filling a gap, while there's, a bit of a quiet section for other TV. It's become the filler thing rather than the killer thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's we're watching that. Yeah. We just put, as soon as any other show comes along, we will almost certainly be yeah, we'll watch that instead.
Indeed.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about anything else? What else have you watched?
Have I watched anything else? Let me have a look quick. The only thing I really watched, I'm not up to date on the Pokémon anime in the episodes that are airing in Japan with subtitles, but I did make an effort to go and watch some of the subtitled episodes. I went and watched the sort of final fight episodes of Leon versus Ash. Ash versus the Galarian champion in the World Championships in the Pokemon anime. I would say spoilers, but I feel like anyone who would care about this, the internet has shouted about it a lot already.
Yep.
Ash is the world champion in Pokemon,
Yay.
and Ash gets to be world champion. He's the very best, like no one ever was,
except the guy that he just defeated. Because until Ash got to be the very best, the other guy was the best.
Well, yeah, he was the very best, but now he. Oh, I see what you mean. Like no one ever was.
Yeah,
I suppose. Sorry, took a second. I was like. Why is the guy he beat the best? He's not the best.
He was the best.
Sorry.
Now he has lost his feet.
It's been a long week.
Defeated.
Yeah. I am aware of the people that claim that Ash shouldn't have won that final fight and he only won it because Eternatus flew over the battlefield and recharged the Dynamax bands, which meant that Ash was able to Dynamax Pikachu, which he wouldn't have been able to do otherwise and probably would have been defeated because Leon still had access to Dynamax.
Wait, was this a solar flare did something to the cartridge of the Pokemon?
Basically, yeah. So in this final championship fight, they were both basically all gimmicks from previous Pokemon series were permitted. You got your Z moves, your Mega Evolutions, your Gigantamax. The one we're going to talk about is Gigantamax. the power of Gigantamax comes from a legendary Pokemon called Eternatus. Ash had already used his Dynamax, and it's like down to the last couple of Pokemon. His opponent's still got Dynamax left. He hasn't. Eternatus flies over the stadium. Little sparkles come down. His Dynamax wristband is charged up again because of the crystals. I understand the Ash shouldn't have won because he got a free additional Dynamax. Look, he's been 10 for 20 years. He's spent 20 years losing tournament after tournament after tournament after tournament. He's won one tournament prior to this ever in 10 tournaments he's entered. I feel like he deserves the win here. And like, I know it's silly to feel emotional investment in this as someone like this.
No. This has been like a thing that you've loved throughout your entire life. I don't think it's silly to feel.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. It's like I know that this is a fictional character that was scripted to win a match that was kind of a little bit cheaty of a win. Pokemon was like the first hyperfixation in my life, and I got into the anime before I started playing the games. Like that was my first real engagement with that series, and I think the reason it feels so special is that they held off for so long, so much longer than I think any other children's show would have done, having Ash continually rise and rise and rise and not be good enough and get shot down and have to start over from scratch and try again. And the sheer number of times that, like, all he's ever wanted is to be the very best. And he has had so few scraps of any success along that road and kept persisting. There is something really emotionally engaging and like there's something that means a lot to me about seeing that journey come to its fruition and see someone.
I mean, I think it's a realistic journey for people to look up to. Like, sometimes you can, do your absolute best and still not win.
Yeah.
But if you're still enjoying yourself and going back and trying again.
Yeah. And, sometimes you'll win because you got lucky at the right time. Sometimes you'll win for other reasons. Sometimes you'll lose because the other person got lucky at the right time.
Yeah.
You just have to dust yourself off, accept it for what it is, and take your wins where you can find them and keep trying. And it was very nice.
Yeah.
What about you? You watched anything else this week?
I've started watching a thing, but it's quite long, so I'm going to wait until next week to tell you about it.
Okay. Well then. Time for this.
Can you sponsor?
Who's our new sponsor?
Well, do you have a big company?
I mean, I don't, but I'm sure someone listening to this probably does.
Do you need to keep secrets?
I mean, sometimes I see secret things that I'm not allowed to share.
What if there was, like, a screen protector you could put on your phone that's like the screen protectors that they use on the security booth at the supermarket, so that unless you're standing right in front of it looking at it at a very particular angle, it's just black
screen. If you're
screen.
not at the right angle, you can't see the thing.
You can't see the thing, it's just a black screen.
Yeah, I see. I can see that.
It's a privacy thing for your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. What if that? You want some of that? It's a screen protector. It will ensure that any photograph taken looks like an exhausted yet hyperactive toddler took the photo. It'll be smeared and smudged and kind of just blurry and fucked up. So no one will be able to steal any of your secrets.
Is this what's been going on with all those video game leaks where it looks like the person cannot hold a camera straight in 2022?
Yeah, it looks like they faked it all in Blender.
Yeah.
And then they added artificial camera wobble and a weird aspect ratio.
Is this why in this year we can't get a photo of a leaked thing that looks, better than oops, I tripped over mid taking the photo?
Yeah, I was talking about the security feature that you have in supermarket cameras thing. It's like if they did that sort of thing so that you're not supposed to be able to see it from the side, but instead use that invisibility shield thing there was a Kickstarter for a while ago.
Oh, yes.
So that's why it looks all blurry and shaky.
I mean, this sounds like a product that someone needs. I can think of at least one video game corporation that seems like they're already using this tech.
Inside the boardroom. Inside the boardroom of Supremacy Software.
Hi. Well, reviews are in.
Yeah.
For our open world platformy collectathon.
Yeah.
They are not good.
But it's a new game in that franchise everyone loves.
Yeah, well, it's apparently buggy and unpolished and unfinished and rough and just generally like not a very well made game.
I mean, we did cut an awful lot of corners.
Yeah, but like, consumers are idiots. I thought they wouldn't notice.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason we call them cash monkeys.
Exactly. So we gotta find a spin for this. We gotta find a spin for the fact that we sold them a unfinished, incomplete game as if it were a finished product.
Right.
And
Have we tried nuh-uh?
We've tried nah, it's not working. I've got a plan though. I've got a bold new idea.
Oh.
So you know how, in the past we've released early access games.
Yeah,
where
some of those might get finished one day.
Yeah, we release an unfinished game and we tell people it's unfinished, but like buy it anyway, it'll be finished someday. Right. What if we did that just like now? After we've sold it as a finished game.
So, yeah, we've been pre-ordering it for months as a full game, and we've shown it at trade shows, and we've released it as a full game, as a 1.0 version. That is out there. We've even patched that version already.
What?
And now...
Here's my suggestion is we just very confidently say, let me think. I'm very thankful for all of the excellent feedback you've given us.
Right. Yeah.
We obviously have a long way to go.
Right.
But this global playtest has given us invaluable information that we can use to improve the game going forward. Thank you for supporting us during the global playtest.
And you think people are, that foolish they're going to buy this?
I think
I think that is maybe pushing it for us.
I think if we say it confidently enough,
right.
I think a lot of people will not question it, and it will instead go, wait, was this an early access title? Did I just not pay attention to that?
Oh, we're gaslighting them.
Oh yeah, we're gaslighting them.
Right.
We want them to go, I'm so embarrassed by having not realized I bought an early access game that like I'm too embarrassed to even Google whether it was an early access game.
It's their fault.
Yeah, because like if I Google whether it was an early access game and it says it was an early access game, I'm gonna feel so foolish. I'm just not even gonna Google it. I'm gonna assume that it was an early access game. That's on me.
That is on them.
Yeah,
and they should know better.
Yeah, they should have known that we were gonna retroactively after release decide it was a global playtest.
Absolutely,
they should have known that.
Foolish. You are a fucking genius.
I know.
So, what have you put in your ears?
It's just been the Pokemon soundtrack.
Just the Pokemon soundtrack?
This is Pokemon. Found people who ripped the soundtrack for Scarlet and Violet already and put it on YouTube, so I sat listening to the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet soundtrack while writing about Scarlet and Violet.
You listened to quite a randomly jaunty version of the original Pokemon theme.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. You were Pokemoning.
I needed to practice piano because I haven't actually had time to properly practice piano for a while. And since you were otherwise engaged, I was like, I'm gonna get back to trying to learn a piece on the piano. And I found sheet music for the Pokemon theme. It's an interesting interpretation of the Pokemon theme. I had to copy the sheet music into FL Studio to understand exactly what what it all meant, because I just couldn't work it out otherwise. But I'm slowly learning to play the Pokemon theme on piano.
Yeah,
because I needed a piece to learn.
I at this point I was like 3-4 days deep into like mainlining Pokemon. I kept going. Look, I've played too much Pokemon. It sounds like Jane's playing Pokemon over there. She's probably not. I'm probably imagining it because I'm hyperfixating, and like I did that like 4 or 5 times and was like, you're because every time I was like, you'll get to the end of that like little bit of
B C C B sharp B flat C.
Yeah, you'll get to the end of that and then it'll change probably, and then it kept being Pokemon. I was like, this is definitely Pokemon.
Yeah,
that you've unannounced started learning. It was a lovely day.
Yep. Yeah. And by about 5 p.m. I couldn't quite get the the chords, because this is me trying to learn to play two-handed piano for the first time ever.
Yeah.
I couldn't always time the chords correctly. I basically got the tune down.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, so that's the thing. You got to listen to that. Few other people could be so hyper-fixated that somebody learning an instrument badly in the same room wouldn't
There was
irritate the piss out of them.
there were brand new Pokemon I'd never seen doing attacks on the TV. I had a lot going on.
Yeah. What else have you listened to?
This is just Pokemon.
Just the Pokemon.
Yeah, what about you? You're gonna have to carry this segment. I just listened to Pokemon.
We've been listening to more The Empty Bowl. This has become our white noise go to sleep podcast.
Yeah, it's been our little bedtime routine.
And I think we've talked about this a few times. It's been nice that recently, I think for a while there was some missed weeks or missed fortnights, because I think it's supposed to be fortnightly. The Empty Bowl is a very chill podcast where they just talk about cereal, news about cereal, new cereals coming soon.
It's a thing where, like, if I fall asleep mid-sentence, I'm not going to go, oh no, I missed the end of their conversation. Like, none of it matters in any way where, like, I'll be annoyed I missed it.
Yeah.
But that while they're talking, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm engaged in what you're saying. But if I fall asleep, I don't give a shit.
Yep. And the fact that we can, like, listen to the same, now 78 episodes... Yeah. Just on rotation.
I have exactly the right level of and lack of investment.
Yep.
That it fits the perfect bill for going to bed with.
Yeah. And it's deliberately supposed to be sort of meditative, so they keep the tone sort of quiet and even, and it's got some like wave crashing sounds in the background.
It does,
so it's very chill. And that's lovely to do. The other thing I have been listening to is the new series of SCP Archives.
Oh yeah,
has retoined. So recently we have had SCP-5167 and SCP-5761.
Such catchy names.
And both of these are titled. It's one episode. This is titled Among Us.
I've heard of that videoed game.
So, the first story is about a person who keeps appearing in Among Us games.
Is that actually what it's about?
Yes.
I was making a random...
Just randomly turning up in lobbies.
Okay.
And that becomes incredibly suspicious, and the Foundation basically have this supercomputer that's managed to sort of spot it and can recognise this thing and document this thing, and apparently knows more about this thing than any other. The second part of the story is International Space Station is taken over by an entity, and the people on the space station are seemingly just going about doing tasks, general maintenance stuff. But every now and again, one of them dies.
Okay, I thought it was a really fucking stupid idea to have an SCP thing about a video game that exists in the real world. You've kind of sold me on this as being kind of fun.
What if there was a dark eldritch god who had observed the game Among Us and was like, now I want to play it with real people in a space station?
Yeah.
You will all observe. It's a fascinating two-part story, and I'm impressed they managed to get basically those two SCP numbers, which are anagrams of each other, as their entries within the archive. I thought that was quite fun. The second episode I listened to recently was also a two-story thing. SCP-5733 and SCP-6733, Suburb Slasher.
Okay.
So, 5733 is about a videotape.
Right.
If you watch the videotape, it appears to be a pretty low-budget 80s-style horror film by Crystal Elms Productions. There's lots of references to, like, people in the horror industry and horror movies.
Yeah.
In this episode, and it's almost like a who's who of and what's what of horror. Just how much horror do you know, just for trivia purposes? The principle is pretty simple. There is a young woman and a bunch of her friends, and all of her friends get murdered by the suburb slasher, and she is the final girl, and at the 90-minute mark of this film, she runs into the basement, slams the door behind her, and runs down to hide in the basement, and looks directly into the camera and goes, "Hey, it's kind of fucked up that you've been watching all of this. What do I do now? How do I survive?"
Uh-huh.
And the viewer is expected to give instructions to this final girl.
Uh-huh.
And it's a number of stories whereby it's like, okay, we did this test and this person suggested these basic tropes. There's one where they got two people who were like trained martial artists, like and like fighting experts, to basically around the clock stay up and train her to fight for as long as possible.
Okay.
And then try and get her to fuck up the killer, basically. There's various reasons why these things don't work. There's one where they manage to get her to like leave town, and things get really fucking weird. But basically, all of these things sort of fail, and as soon as she dies, the tape ejects.
Okay.
And there's more to that story. I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah, no, that is a fascinating concept.
Fascinating concept on its own. That's only half the episode.
Uh-huh.
The second part is a sequel to that film.
Okay.
So in this one, it's like, oh, we found another video. It's called like The Suburb Slasher Returns, and it seems to be made by the same people. We currently have like a search out in the archive for any databases for facial recognition for any of the characters in this film.
Yeah.
And the other film is like, well, there's no trace of them. We don't know who any of these people are, like who any of these actors would have been to have been in this film. In this one, it's a similar sort of concept. The suburb slasher is out there and he does various killings on various people, and it's the sort of like 80s pornography. Oh, and someone's fucking head explodes, or someone gets like a drill through a part of the body that I'm not going to mention because we're just a fun, light-hearted podcast, and I'm not here to do the horror on you. And they basically get this person to watch the video.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's okay, kind of schlocky. And the experts who at the archive who know about the other video are like, and did any of this sort of thing happen? Was there any weird interactions that felt like the protagonist was talking to you? No, nothing like that. And then the next night, weird things start happening to him. And throughout the rest of the story, those deaths happen to people and Foundation staff all around him over the course of like 2 nights. And it's a really fucked up story. And they're like, yeah, we're just going to leave that video on the shelf in the archive. No one needs to.
Yeah, we don't need
to watch this.
We don't need to solve the mystery of this one. What if we just don't watch it?
Yeah, and it's archived as safe, and it's safe as long as nobody fucking watches it. Yeah, it's a really fascinating pair of stories, and the first one of those drags a little bit, partly because I think of the way it's written. Rather than dramatising a lot of the stuff they do there, they do the thing that SCP Foundation stories can fall into. A lot of SCP blah 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 /1 does this. At this time, SCP blah 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 does this. And it just goes, it's repeating the entry name over and over and over again. Please just dramatise something so you don't have to keep saying it. Just use them or the character, please. The first one suffers from that a lot. The
Yeah.
second half of that is way more dramatized and way more interesting.
I
But
mean, that is the thing you potentially wander into with this format of
yeah. This sort of
Yeah.
found archive material, redacted stuff. But yeah, really enjoying new stuff and interested that there's still more fun stories to tell.
Yay.
And that is everything I've listened to.
Well then, time for this.
Do you suffer from sad? Does the weight of winter darkness sit heavily on your mood? Try Portasun from Ulaya. It's a small portal to a part of the world with sunshine. Experience warmth, light, vitamin D. It's carbon negative and saves on fuel bills. And that's not all. If you suffer with capitalism, if the weight of unbridled corporate greed sits heavy on your soul, why not add the new magnification lens to Portasun and use your new heat ray to burn capitalism to the ground? Portasun from Ulaya. Because it doesn't have to be forever autumn.
Okay. Hi, sir. I'm pretty tired from all the changes you've been having us make, but I'm on top of it, I think.
Absolute nonsense. I'm sure you're just gonna work a bit harder. Bootstraps and all that.
Okay. Well, what did you have in mind? What do you need? Is there a new feature you need me to code or something?
Well, I'm hearing that we're spending an awful lot of money on storage space and development and things like that. We need to find a way to trim some of the fat.
Okay, I guess you want some kind of, like, new algorithm for reducing image upload size or something?
No. I don't think that's going to do it. So something more tangible. Where can I get a lot of something and just get rid of it?
I mean, that's not really how it works. Like,
What's this over here do?
I mean, that's a critical piece of system infrastructure. Like,
Which
without...
bit? What does it do?
It's the net framework that makes the calls that gets the new social posts into the feed.
We don't need nets. I'm just going to delete that.
Please don't, anything but that, please.
Well, what about this bit over here then? What does that bit do?
I mean, that's half of the two-factor authentication. Like, without that...
Gone.
No, please, without that...
Gone, yes,
People will get asked for
to
codes,
delete.
but they won't send out
Deleted,
codes.
done.
No,
already done.
Okay,
Gone.
no, okay.
Bloat. Gone.
Okay,
No more bloat.
Okay, I'm glad you don't know about the recycle bin. What else? Did you need while we were here?
Oh, take the trash out. Yes, I'll take the trash out.
No.
Empty, recycle.
Oh,
yes.
no.
There we go. All gone.
You've saved an entire 3 megabytes and everything is broken now.
Excellent. 3 megabytes. Whoa. Where can we get more megabytes from? Where can I shave some of those off? What about this one?
How about this? I'm gonna order in a special computer just for you, and you can delete every file on it as much as you like, and that'll help the site.
Sounds like expenses. I'm deleting that from the cost. Therefore, I've saved money. Therefore, I'm a genius.
Yep, you're a genius.
I am a fucking genius. I should have someone say that to me a lot. I am a fucking genius. Yes, that feels right. Anyway, I'm going off to play with Daddy's emeralds.
Do you know what I want to see more of?
What do you want to see more?
Brochure Justice Warriors.
Justice Warriors?
Yeah.
All right, Larry. Oh, Larry, how you doing? Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. You been up to much?
Oh, I saw a post that had me a bit wound up. You know how it is. I saw one of those things being shared as if it was unanimously good news from people who weren't, scratching below the surface.
Yeah, I mean, and I suppose that is kind of the point, really, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's Jeff Bezos.
Well, you know how it is. All these billionaires have been saying how bullied they are and how unpopular they are, and ultimately, I think what we know about them, especially if Elon is anything to go by, what they really want is to be liked.
Well, is the thing. So Bezos has said he's going to give away most of his wealth during his
124
lifetime.
billion, yeah.
Which, first of all, he's not said a concrete number. Most could be 51%, and he could still have 49% of his wealth,
Which is still,
which is still,
obscene amount of money.
infinite wealth, more than any human should ever have.
Yeah.
But,
What's actually happening, of course, is that he's funneling it into one of his own charity foundations.
This is what I was going to say, is usually when, when billionaires do this, they funnel it into charities they own, because then it's, rather than pay taxes, which they should be doing, where the voting public has a say in what that money is used for the greater good of everyone, if they put it into their own charitable organisation, they get to have the power to decide what's done with it, rather than, helping the people have what they actually want.
And obviously he did start this with some slight outside charity, because I believe he gave 0.0000001% of his wealth to Dolly Parton.
Yeah, which, for what it's worth, Dolly Parton has actually been legitimately very good at...
Actually does, doing
a
lot of work for her community.
Yeah, doing a lot, has legitimately been very good about giving away her wealth and
reading
using
programs and actually using it to to help
tangible things.
Yeah.
But even beyond that, he said that in theory he's going to donate most of this money towards global the fight against global warming.
All right. Yeah.
And in his very vague words, people who can bring unity across the political divide, which sounds a lot like centrists.
Right.
And we can put
I mean, at this point, centrism is relatively left-wing. I mean, if we're actually talking about, on a proper left-right divide, as opposed to what we currently have.
Well, see, here's the thing: is in theory, if you do put your money where your mouth is and put money behind the fight against climate change, that is great. But if you've got all this money that you do not need and you're willing to give away, hey, here's what I would suggest, first fucking thing.
Start,
as a start, before you think about the rest of the world, why not start paying your fucking workers a living wage and not making them so overworked they've got to fucking piss in bottles to meet quotas?
Yeah.
Start from where you're at and use some of your wealth to, have better working conditions and living conditions of the people who work for you in exchange for some of the wealth you've stolen from their labour.
Why not turn Amazon into a workers' cooperative whereby everyone is earning the same wages?
I mean, one can only dream, but it's notable that he's saying he's going to do these big grand gestures and not fixing the problems with his underpaid workers,
and then promptly turning around and announcing that he's fired 10,000 workers.
Exactly, while union busting out the fucking wazoo. And there's a reason why he's not helping his workers, but he is making grand, vague promises about the environment. It's because one of those is easier to sound like a philanthropic gesture, and the other one requires you to do a good thing for other people's benefit, not because it's a good press release.
Yeah, 100%, mate.
It's frustrating. I fucking hate billionaires.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolute fucking parasites. And I hope that more people this time understand exactly what is happening, rather than just going, "Oh, what a nice man that Bezos turned out to be." Billionaires aren't all bad, because they are. Fuck them.
Yeah.
Fancy hug, mate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, good hug, mate. Good hug. Right, I think I'll go and have a little nap.
Me too, I think. Yeah.
Nice.
So, you've done book.
I've done book. I've done many things. Book is one of the things.
Yeah.
I've done many books. The most recent one was Me and My Dysphoria Monster. You can find everything else I do at Laura K. Buzz. What about that book we did together?
That book we did together. Well, that's called Who Hunts the Whale, and it's a silly and serious satirical book about what it's like to work in the game industry, even if you're not one of the programmy type peoples. What is it like to work for Supremacy Software? Those people we make horrible jokes about every week that seem to get more and more prescient. Please don't do this to us.
Stop taking our silly jokes and doing them for real.
Yes, stop inventing the Torment Nexus.
No one asked you to invent the Torment Nexus.
But yeah, you can get that at unbound.com/book/whale. You can pre-order it. You can get signed copies and stuff, and that's I think that's going to print very soon if it's not already.
Imminently.
Imminently.
I think we've got one last version at some point soon. We'll show up and we'll look at it, and then it'll go to the printers.
Damn, excitement, adventure, really wild things. Yeah. Well, I guess me talk about things where I can be found because you're Laura K. Buzz in all the places.
I am Laura K. Buzz in all the places. What about you? Where are you?
Twitch, YouTube, Mastodon.
All the things, yeah.
All the things. Me, I can be found at patreon.com/stonedmonkeyradio. For as little as $1 a month, you can help me justify a 76-hour work week and many other bad life choices.
Yay!
Yay!
Bad life choices!
I have a Redbubble. You can get all the cool t-shirts that I've designed. There's a Queer and Pleasant Strangers one. There's loads of other cool ones. There's one just Laura jumping out of a butt, celebrating butts.
Yeah!
There's a frighteningly gay shirt. There's a Wealth Inequality Solution shirt. I think I now own pretty much one of every single shirt I've designed. If I don't have them here, they have been ordered.
Yay!
Yay! You can get all those at janiac.redbubble.com. Linktree is the easiest way to find all of my shit. Linktree.ee/janiac. JANEIAC. Thank you very much for joining us. Laura, will you sing us out, please, darling?
Until next time, be a stranger.